Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with the king of Kaching, the great Tom Antion. He has never had a job. He's an internet multimillionaire, guy next door, and founder of the only licensed, dedicated internet marketing school in the country. He is also the subject of a Hollywood documentary, The American Entrepreneur, that premiered in the spring of 2021. He's done over 1,000 appearances in all formats and has been invited on shows as many as 13 times. Enjoy this interview.
Well, hey, Tom, before we get into your life, and I'm curious, when we look at the calendar now, it's March, and 3 years ago, everything went away and changed irrevocably. How did you survive COVID, and how has it changed the way that you live your life and do things now?
Well, it didn't really affect me that much. I mean, other than I haven't been on an airplane in 3 years, and I'm just thrilled about it. I'm known mostly as an internet guy now. I mean, I've been selling on the commercial internet since there was a commercial internet around 1994. And so other than not doing these big speaking engagements I used to do several a year, I've just been selling online just like every other thing and not getting on an airplane.
Talk to me. Let's get to the essence of what you do. And to do that, I'm going to hypothetically put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day. And one of the kids will look up at you and ask you, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
Well, first of all, I would ask them for help with the technology. Because I tell people, you hear people all the time, well, I don't really know technology. I say, go wake a kid up from his nap at preschool and get him to help. So basically, I would tell the kids I sell electrons and then let them look at each other like, this guy's crazy.
That's awesome.
So mostly I sell intangibles now. I've sold cassette tapes back, and a lot of your listeners probably never even saw one. But I've been selling products and knowledge, mostly how-to information, not any kind of fiction or novels, or I know you are into jazz, so no kind of music, although I did do some parody music for a while, but I was afraid I'd get sued, so I didn't release it. So basically I've just been selling how-to information online and in person. I have a big retreat center in Virginia Beach where people actually stay in the retreat center with me for an immersion weekend, and we have a TV studio here. But even that's not been much since the pandemic. So it's basically you've been using the internet, and even a third grader knows what the internet is nowadays. So I've been using the internet to make a living. I kind of call it like an insurance policy for your family. Even if you're not doing it full time, it is you can create things that have money coming in regularly without your attention. So that's a good thing to have.
So when you were in the third grade, what was your dream growing up? What did you want to become?
When I was in the third grade, geez, Joe, I'm so far over the hill, I can't remember going up the hill. I don't.
I'm getting there too.
Back in those days, it's interesting because I've heard that somebody, I don't know who said this, but they said if your kid doesn't know what they want to be when they grow up, don't worry about it. It probably hasn't been invented yet. And
I haven't heard that. That's great.
Yeah, that's the speed at which things are happening now. Like in the past 4 or 5 months, artificial intelligence went from nobody's talking about it much until like everybody is talking about it. So in the third grade, I don't know what I was wanting to be back in the third grade, but nowadays, it could change tomorrow.
So are you happy with how everything turned out?
Yeah, I mean, I've never had a job. I've always had my own business. My podcast is called Screw the Commute, based on the fact I've never had a job. I'm going to be 68 years old this summer, and I've never had a job. I've always had my own business. So what I love about it is if I don't like you, I don't have to deal with you. It's like take a hike, and I can do things and And you can live, if you look at my resume, Joe, you'd think, God, this is BS. How could anybody do all this stuff? Well, if you're not in traffic making somebody else rich for most of your life, you can live 2 or 3 lives. So yeah, I'm thrilled to death with the way things are turning out for me and all the people I'm helping.
So, everything that we do, comes from a place, a source. Take me back to your childhood, where you were born and raised, and what's some of the seeds that were planted into you that grew into who you are?
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, so I come from a small town. Actually, the population is still 500 people after all these years. It's in western Pennsylvania. It's a little town called Claysville. It was named after the great statesman Henry Clay. And I don't really think he slept there or anything. I think his horse just took a dump there on the way through, and that was good enough for us. And my dad came from Syria on a cattle boat back in the early 1900s and became an entrepreneur, made me into an entrepreneur. They're actually doing a Hollywood documentary about me called The American Entrepreneur. It's supposed to come out this summer. And he was 50. You remember Johnny Cash?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, Johnny Cash wrote a song called A Boy Named Sue. And it was a song about an old drunk cowboy that didn't think he was going to be around to raise his kids, so he named him Sue so he'd have to fight and scrap and make him tough. So my dad was 50 when he had me. I was the baby of 6 boys, and he didn't think he'd be around. So he, from the time I could crawl, he would put pillows in front of me and put my toys in front of him on the other side of the pillows to teach me how to overcome obstacles. And to this day, if you tell me I can't do something, you better get out of the way as I blow by you doing it. See, when people, for your audience, when people tell you can't do something, it has nothing to do with you. It means they can't do it. All right? It doesn't have anything to do with you. And so he only went to the 2nd grade, but he was one of the smartest guys I knew. Actually, I remember when he retired at 73 years old, he sat down and read the entire World Book Encyclopedia. And a lot of people, again, never even seen one of those, 26 volumes plus the supplements. It used to be on DVD, and now I don't know what it's on now. But so I come from a background where I claim with all this craziness in politics, I say you could take a farmer from anywhere where I live or grew up and put them in any government office, and they would make better decisions because they all have common sense and they know the value of a dollar. They're not just throwing away everybody else's tax dollars for all kinds of crazy stuff. So that's my background, was entrepreneurship. Never had a job. My dad had built truck stop and all kinds of stuff, and that's all I ever saw in my whole life.
So who's been a consistent role model or a hero for you?
Let's see, a consistent. There are more people that maybe not household names, but there's a guy in I think he's from Florida. His name was David Ring. And I remember vividly, I've done 3,000 speeches in 12 countries. And so I've been around a little bit. And it's pretty hard to impress me when when people do speeches. This is one of the guys that I remember. He was speaking at the National Speakers Association. There was 2,000 of us other professional speakers in the audience. And the guy kind of limped and hobbled up to the stage. He had cerebral palsy. And he started talking, and all us speakers are always trying to hustle speaking engagements, right? He said he gets up on stage, everybody's riveted on him, and he says, "I have cerebral palsy. What's your problem?" and everybody cracked up, but it was his story of how he overcame all these obstacles. David, you can't drive a car. He ended up driving a car. David, you can't have a family. He has a family. So those are the kind of people that I am all for. I'm kind of like an underdog. I love the underdogs, and so many of them you never heard of, but they're people that, got a break. In fact, one of my kind of secrets, motivational secrets, is I watch America's Got Talent on YouTube. I watch America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent, X Factor, and I look to see when the video came out and how many views it had. If it has like a couple million views in several months, I know there's something really special about that. And I really get in touch with the ones that people that are homeless and then they got their break, or the guy was in jail for 20 years or singing in the subway for 20 years and got his break, and then I tear up over it. And, so I'm all for the underdog, and that's what motivates me more than anybody you've ever heard of.
So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, who would it be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
Let's see, a dog whisperer. Somebody that, I'm not real woo-woo, but I'd love to see what's going on with my boy that's, he's a week away from going to doggy heaven, and just to see what he thinks.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't get impressed with celebrities or anything like that. I'm more, I'm really down to earth. One of my nicknames is the multimillionaire next door, because coming from that small town, that's the kind of people I relate to, is people that are, regular salt of the earth kind of people. So I can't even think of a celebrity or anybody that I'd want to talk to. In fact, the dealings I've had with celebrities have been so terrible. They're arrogant and, they're all narcissistic, and, so I'm more of a salt of the earth person.
I like it. So what is it that has consistently motivated you through the day? When you think about your life and all that you've accomplished, what's been the motivator for you to get out of bed and to go through your days?
Be able to help the entrepreneurs I've helped, but past that, I've helped a lot of charitable things. So I have rescued animals, like hundreds and hundreds of animals, and contributed enormous amount. I auctioned myself off one time, and I was able to give $24,000 to Bichon Rescue. It's the type of dog. And then I was sitting in, I remember this vividly, I was doing a speech in Las Vegas, and prior to me going on, there was this guy that had a charity for homeless children that feeds homeless children. And I'm sitting there looking at my fat gut. I got that, what they call Dunlap disease, your belly Dunlaps over your belly. And I'm thinking, homeless kids. The guy was explaining the definition of a homeless child is they move at least once every 30 days. And they have to teach the kids to hide the food because the older kids will steal it from them. And, I'm just really touched by this. So I got on stage and I auctioned myself off, and I pulled, I think, $78,000 or something, and I was able to feed 288 children for a year. So that's the kind of stuff that fires me up. I could buy whatever I want, and I could have quit doing this 23 years ago. I hit multimillionaire 23 years ago, but then what would I do? So that's the kind of stuff that fires me up. And with this digital age, the sky's the limit for myself and the entrepreneurs that I help.
So based on the wisdom that you've gained throughout your life and the things that you've accomplished and overcome, let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice. What would you tell your younger version?
I would say invent ebooks a lot faster than the rest of the world did. It's hard for me to really pin something down. I mean, I've just lived a life that was persistent, consistent, and of honesty. So many of these I actually developed a TV show called Scam Brigade that goes after bad people. And so I tell people, just be honest. I mean, if these scammers would put the effort into being honest, they could be rich and nobody's chasing them and arresting them. So I really wouldn't change anything. I just kept going forward, treating people right. I actually wrote one of my books is called The One Sentence Business Plan. I create quality products that people actually want at a reasonable price, and I service them after the sale. If every company on earth would do that, they wouldn't have to pay $100,000 for some consultant to give them a mission statement. They could just do that, and they'd be fine.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't change much at all. And a lot of people ask me, well, what's your keys to success? And it pretty much boils down to persistence and consistency, which I'm a little afraid in today's atmosphere that people aren't learning that as young people. There's too much entitlement. There's not work ethic and things that when I grew up. So that does worry me about the current generation.
So of all the things you've accomplished in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Oh, definitely that children thing, feeding those kids. Yeah, I've just done so many things, but that's, there's nothing else that I could do better than that, taking care of helpless children that are in a really bad situation. So that's number one by far.
So of all the letters and feedback you've gotten from the work you've done, what's been the best fan letter, so to speak, you ever received?
Well, it wasn't a letter. It was I was doing a fundraiser up in Philadelphia. I do a lot of fundraisers. And a lady came up to me, and she was blubbering, crying. And I'm like, oh, my God, what? She could hardly talk. She was crying so much. And her husband came up, and he was teary-eyed, and her kids were with her. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, I hope that kid's not mine. I didn't really recognize that lady. So she finally got her composure, and she said she had seen me speak like 15 years earlier when they were going to lose their home, and they saw me talk. I have the longest continuously running internet seminar ever. And it's, of course, I came from a comic background, so it's not called boot camp, it's called butt camp, because I'm sitting on my rear end making all this money, so I called it butt camp. I've done them all over the world. But anyway, she was at butt camp, and they were broke, they were going to lose their home, and she did what I said, and then now they had a thriving internet business and saved their home and saved their whole family. So it wasn't in writing, but it was much more powerful than a letter, I can tell you that.
So, Tom, everyone out there has a perception of you, an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, clients, colleagues, but ultimately you live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm a kind of a swashbuckler, brash in some ways, but, I can't help people if I pat them on the back, and just try to take money from them and make them happy. So I'm a really straight shooter. They know my small town background, that my handshake means something. So that's the way I look at myself. I'm fair but tough, and also I love to make my hobbies tax deductible, which I teach all my students to do. So I have all kinds of different side hustles like this protection dog was originally $50,000 dog. So I have a protection dog company. I have a tennis company. I have a self-defense company where I was in gunfights and knife fights with bikers trying to kill me a long time ago. And so I think they see me as a straight shooter would be the thing. They know if they ask me something, they're going to get a true answer, even if it hurts a little.
So for all things related to Tom, business-wise, podcast-wise, overall, if anyone wants to get involved with anything that you have, where can they go on the web?
Yeah, they probably should go to screwthecommute.com and sign up for the free podcast, and hopefully you'll agree to be on it one of these days. And that leads you to all my stuff. I have mentor programs and a lot of individual programs on ebooks and digital marketing and professional speaking, all kinds of stuff like that. But screwthecommute.com pretty much leads you to me.
Wonderful, Tom. This has been great, man. Hey, thank you for being so open and raw, and I wish you the best, man.
My pleasure. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.